Unit 4, Test 1 Review. We're going to split this chat unit into several sections, and so this is the first one of the Unit 4 test. And to start off with, we're going to start with having the function families. And our function families are based upon our function here. So let's look at number 1. And on this one, we had x plus 1 squared. X plus 1 squared minus 4. So the function family for that one is quadratic. The parent function is f of x equals x squared.
Please pardon this interruption.
And our domain, we need to graph it before we can actually get to our domain and range and any of the rest of this. So we know it's a quadratic, which means we have a vertex. And then we're going to use the chart 1, 3, 5 to help us find the other points to plot. And so to find our vertex, it's always opposite of the inside, so -1, comma, same as what's on the outside, so -4. So I'll start with plotting that point. -1, -4. Now, I'm going to multiply it by a. And so my a, in this case, is equal to 1 because there's a 1 understood to be in front of the parenthesis. So if I do 1 times whatever I have in the first, it really doesn't change anything. So I step out 1, go up 1, step out 1, go up 3, out 1, go up 5. And then I mirror it the same, going to the left, and then I'd sketch in my parabola. And so if I was to look at it, the two places I cross the x-axis are here. My vertex is here. And so if I'm looking at domain, I'm looking at what x values I can be at. I can be from -infinity to +infinity. When I look at range, I'm looking at y values. My lowest y value is here, which is at -4. So I can go from -4 all the way up to +infinity. So my end behavior as x approaches +infinity, so as x goes to the right, my y value is going up, so it's going to +infinity. When I look at as x goes to the -infinity, so as I go to the left, my y value is going up, so I'm going to +infinity. Now, if I look at where am I increasing? So if I look from the point here, so the x value is -1, all the way to the right, which is +infinity, I'm increasing. So my increasing interval is from -1 to +infinity. My decreasing interval starts off at the -infinity and goes all the way until I get to that -1. So -infinity to 1, -1. Remember, these are always your x values. And so you're thinking about those with your x, and you always read it from left to right. So now let's go ahead and go on to the next one. And so the next one we have is got the absolute value bars. So therefore, it is the absolute value function family. And the parent function of that is f of x is equal to absolute value of x. And so Before I can do any of the rest of these, I need to graph it. When I'm graphing absolute value, I need a vertex. So my vertex is at 3, -4. So I come down over here to 3, go down to -4, put my dot. And remember, absolute value makes a V. We're either going to have a V or an upside down V, depending on our sign. If it's negative, it's going to be upside down. This number up here also tells me my slope going to the right. So my slope going right is -1/1. So down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1, all the way off the graph. And my slope going left is a mirror. So that's my graph. Now, domain, I'm covering all x's, so my domain is from -infinity to +infinity. My range, on the other hand, I'm not covering all my y's. I'm coming from the very bottom, so where we have the -infinity, up to I hit this line here, which is at -4. So I cover from -infinity to -4. And I can be at that -4, so therefore it's a square bracket. When I look at what's happening as I go to the right, which is +infinity, is to the right. As I go to the right, I'm going down, so that means -infinity. As I go to the left, which is -infinity, I'm going down, so -infinity for that one as well. So now let's take and look at the increasing and decreasing intervals. So we are looking at the y-axis, and when we look at the x-axis, and we want to go, okay, where am I increasing from? So if I follow from the very far left, going to the right, I look at the graph. My graph is increasing until I hit the stop point at -3, or at +3. So from -infinity to +3, I'm increasing. Now we're going to pick up the same idea, but going from +3 through +infinity, as we're going from +3 all the way over, I'm decreasing. Our last one we're going to look at is one of the linear functions. And we know it's linear because there's no power, there's no absolute value bars, so our function is linear. And linear has the parent function of f of x equals x. And anytime you have linear, it doesn't matter what your graph looks like, you're going to automatically be able to fill in both domain and range as -infinity to +infinity. So without even looking at your graph, you should be able to answer those first 3 on your, or first 4 on your graph answers. Now, for us to graph it, for when we have a linear, we need our y-intercept, which is the same thing as our b value, which is this number back here. That's where it crosses the y-axis. And we need our slope. And so our b was +1, our slope is -4/3. So negative can represent going down. Or we can change it out and we can do a different way and go into the right. Or if you want to picture it as a +4 and a -3, it is going up and to the left. Is that negative can be placed on either one, and they're both going to give you the same thing. You're going to go down 4, right 3. Down 4, right 3. And go up 4, left 3, and that gets us off of our graph. And so I come in here and I draw my line. And so when I do my end behavior, as the graph goes over to the left-hand side, my y value is going up. So this one's the left. My y value is going up, so it's positive infinity for that one. As I look at my graph, as I go to the right, which is when we go to positive infinity, I'm going down, so that's negative infinity. These are always going to be opposite when we deal with linear. You're either going to be increasing over the whole thing or decreasing over it. One of them is always going to be a none. So if I follow the graph from the left to the right, I'm following. So it's negative infinity to positive infinity. And this is none. So that's it for doing that process. We're going to stop and then I'll go ahead and start the next